Hi, good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Matters of Public Importance, right here on Channel 6. I'm Gail Teixeira, Chief Whip for the Parliamentary Opposition, People's Progressive Party Civic, and for the People's Progressive Party. On this program, we shall focus on matters of public importance, bringing you information, discussion on issues and matters that have concern to you, the Guyanese public, every Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30, right here on Channel 6. Before we get into the meat of the program, as usual, I usually give you the reminders to do with the telephone numbers to call in, 225-0010 and 225-0008. So that's to call in here, and we usually start taking calls around 1 o'clock. So please feel free to call in, and a number of things we keep talking about every week. I'd be interested to know your views. Last week we talked about Kitty Market, and we showed all the terrible photographs of the works being done. Interested in knowing what your views are on all this, for those who saw it, especially those who know a little construction work. And of course, I always remind you about the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. We're at 304 Church Street between New Garden and Peter Rose Street, just opposite the Georgetown Cricket Club. And we have a big sign saying Office of the Leader of the Opposition, so you can't miss the building. Our telephone numbers where you can call to make appointments or to just drop in, or to call and ask if you could speak to someone to give you some advice. You can call 225-3432. And so we have members of Parliament who come by and volunteer on a regular basis. Every day we're very fortunate to have former head of the Presidential Secretariat, Dr. Luncheon, who comes in and also voluntary works about 3-4 days a week. And we also have the former Prime Minister, Sam Hines. All of these who come in and offer voluntary assistance so that we can be more responsive to you, the Guyanese people, and the issues that you are facing under this new government. And of course, we're open to all persons, whether they voted for us or not. So please don't think that if you're a new person that I can't go to the Leader Opposition office. You can. We're there to try and help if we can in whatever way, and we'll explain to you, if we're unable to do that, why we can't, and where you could possibly go. Every week I remind you that there's the Freedom Radio Anti-Discrimination Committee and their telephone number 225-1479, where you can call in and make reports relating to discrimination, ethnic, political, gender, any other form of discrimination, things that are bothering you. And I started giving you about a week or two ago the frequencies for the Freedom Radio, which is the radio where we in the PPP send out our information to our friends and supporters and to any Guyanese who wishes to tune in. For Demerara 91.1, Berbice 90.5, and Essequibo 90.7. So here you have some examples of the kind of programs. We have women's programs, farmers programs, call-in programs, inspirational programs. We have programs that deal with the political situation, and so forth. So you have quite a number of choices if you put it on. And of course, we have music and other things to offer to you as well. We also cover on our program the press conferences by the General Secretary and the Leader of the Opposition, so that you would be able to hear what's going on, no matter which part of Guyana you're in. You know, each week we focus on the lack of consultation, the lack of disclosure, lack of transparency and accountability under the now 16-month-old APNU plus AFC coalition government. And remember, I would have stated in an earlier program that a coalition that came to office by such a hairbreadth of 4,500 odd does not feel morally responsible to be inclusive, not only of the over 200,000 people who didn't vote for them, but who also do not seem to feel that they have to be inclusive of their own supporters on matters that concern their lives, and therefore in violation of Article 13 of the Guyana Constitution. But when we say, you know, that they got into government by a hairbreadth of 4,500, you know that we have an election petition in the courts, because we do not believe that we lost the elections. We believe that the GCOM machinery was compromised and was tampered with, and therefore, with the difference that was so small, the ethical, moral, and democratic thing to have done was to have a recount, which GCOM refused to do. So the People's Progressive Party has had several protests at the courts and GCOM with regards to the delay in hearing the election petition that has sat for a year and cannot be heard, as the chief elections officer, Mr. Lowenfield, and his lawyers have tried everything in the book to prevent the court hearing our case. Think about this. The PPP goes to court on an election petition as the Constitution and laws of our country allow. What are we going to court on? That the conduct and integrity of the elections, 2015 general and regional elections, were flawed, that they were rigged. And where do we believe the compromising or the tampering of the machinery of GCOM took place? Not necessarily at the polling stations, but within the heart of GCOM itself. And so we decided to go to court with an election petition. As we said, you can do that. The laws allow for that. The Constitution allows for that. And we took GCOM to court to deal with answering the issues of allegations to do with the 2015 election results. And when we say GCOM, we mean the chairman, the 6 commissioners, 3 of whom are appointed by the former opposition, PNC, and by the former government, ourselves. And the chief elections officer, who is the one who has to tabulate and announce the results. And isn't it strange that it is the chief elections officer who is one of the people who is being challenged in the petition, who has taken lawyers, paid for by GCOM, to block the petition being heard? This alone is highly suspect. He challenged the former Chief Justice, Mr. Ian Chang, who was in the bench hearing when we went to request an election, to table our election petition. And it is Mr. Lowenfield who called in the Chief Justice to throw out our petition. After the Chief Justice ruled that our petition was in order and should be heard, the Chief Elections Officer again has gone to court to appeal the ruling of the Chief Justice. And so, that's why the case hasn't even started being heard, a year after we have brought it to the court's attention. But isn't it rather suspect that the institution which is the subject of the petition on the issue of integrity of the election results, that the elections officer of that body is challenging the case being heard? What have they got to hide? I wonder. And you see, maybe that's why they're not in a hurry to have the election petition heard at all, and will do everything to try to prevent it being heard. And that's where we're at right now. Well, the Auditor General, is digging up plenty of things at GCOM with regards to their procurement prior to the 2015 elections. So doesn't that illustrate something to you? That if the procurement was flawed, at least in the actual machinery of GCOM, is it possible that that is also flawed? And that is susceptible to being compromised with regards to the results of the elections? Think about it. And of course, today's paper has an ongoing coverage on the audit of the Elections Commission. And now, of course, the headlines are screaming. Sole sourcing, contract splitting, little evidence, GCOM advertised for over 700 million in contracts. Well. Remember, GCOM is a constitutional body. It is supposed to be independent, insulated from the influence of the cabinet and or the National Procurement and Tender Administration. It has its own money. It has to be able, of course, to follow the financial and procurement laws and rules of Guyana. Doesn't matter. So there you have it. The plot gets bigger and deeper, So we'll see, what's going on. But clearly this is yet another scandal. And talking about scandal, let's go to my scandal list that I started on August the 18th. On the 18th of August, right here on this program, I revealed a list of 16 scandalous scandals and scams by the APNU plus AFC coalition, which had taken place in its short 14 months of being in government, an average of one a month. No? On last week's program, I showed you a new scandal that we had uncovered. The PPP Kitty Group invited the PPPC councillor, the only one of two on the APNU-dominated city council, to let's go inspect what's going on at Kitty Market. The rehabilitation works of $240 million. And so we went, and I showed you last week the photographs, and I explained what you were seeing so you'd understand what parts of the building we were looking at. Some of you who live in Georgetown, some of you who live in Kitty may be familiar with the building, but I was trying to go through clip by clip so you would understand, particularly those who are not familiar with the building. But anybody who knows anything about building a house knows that all that old wood, old beams, both horizontal and vertical, and putting new flooring on top of it makes absolutely no sense. It's a waste of money. And combining old and new wood, some of the old wood falling off that they just painted, and so forth and so on. So another scandal. So you remember that's what we did with Kitty. And we exposed that, and I understand that as after that meeting, there was some meeting at Kitty Market upstairs to try to assure people these works will be finished by November 1st. The people, the vendors and everyone had to move out since February. But no one knows what the scope of works is. No one knows what are the estimates for the different sections. All we can say is what we showed. The fish section, which is the market part, which has fish and meat and chicken and pork and so on, nothing has been done there. The sanitary block, nothing has been done there. The old wood and everything holding up the building is still there. The old stairs going upstairs is still there. And they have reduced the number of stalls available for the old stall holders to get in. Drains, there have been no new drains except a half drain that goes halfway on the western side of the building. And you know, if any of you know that area, because the market has been below the road, that this is a market that floods easily. So no accountability. And by the way, we found out that because we were asking who was the contractor, was this advertised and so forth, and we discovered that no, it wasn't advertised. The city council itself is doing the work, and they have hired the workers, and I believe a foreman to monitor, and so there's no contractor to blame in this one. This is public works of the city council, designed and managed and being expended by the city council. So this is totally unbelievable when you go and see it. And so those of you who think that somehow my photographs are wrong, I'd be more willing to show you them again. And but you can go on Facebook and a number of places because they've been put up, I believe, on the PPP Facebook site, so you can see that. But I've been doing my list. I had 16 scandals and scams as of August 18th. And I thought when I did last week's program that I had reached 22, 23. Well, I've done it again as of Wednesday, and we now have 25. 25 scandals. 25. And it is growing. And one of the 25 is not really, some of the real juice hasn't come out yet. We're waiting to see what the government will say before we confirm it as number 25, a scandal. And so what we do is we're keeping track of all this. And we have to say that, you know, this level of corruption, 25 scandals in 16 months. Let's do some maths, right? And I will, this is my little project to keep updating what is going on in this country. Because before we got into government, all the newspapers were screaming, PPP was corrupt, PPP was corrupt, PPP was corrupt. But I'll say this, that in 23 years, if they had 23 cases of corruption, it was plenty. This is 25 cases of corruption in 16 months of this government. Can you imagine what's going to happen by 2020? Well, the coffers of this country will probably be very empty. But let's go back to my list. I've revised it, updated as of yesterday. We now have 25 scandalous scams in 16 months. An average of about 1.5 per month. However, you know, they seem to be getting more into it because in August, whilst they started since June last year, when they got into office, now come next week and I'm going to read you the 25 in case you don't believe me. I'll read back because you heard the 16 the first time in August. I'll come back and read now those 16 plus the new ones, and you will make a judgment for yourself. You know, is Gail Teixeira crazy or is she right? These are things that are happening. And so this is serious stuff. These are the people's money, the taxpayers' money. But I hope the media, and I'm glad to see that some of the media and their investigative journalism is more active than when the new government came in. That even these cases are sending them to do what they're supposed to do as journalists, is investigate. And certainly the campaign against the PPP from about 2009 right through to up to now by some of the hostile media. And there's always these writers who are saying that, well, you know, Apnu, we don't like what you're doing, you know, but don't continue what the PPP did. Well, the PPP did not have this level of corruption, this level of scandals in the 23 years we were in government. We're not saying that everything was fine, but we're saying that 25 scandals in 16 months is a major, major shock and awe to this country and the people in comparison to what are cases that were championed in the media and by other people against the PPP over a 23-year period. And I'm saying that in the entire life of successive PPPC administrations over the 23 years, nothing near this has occurred. Nothing near these figures. And I'm not contriving them. I'm just going by the reports in the newspapers. I'm just going by what has happened and said in Parliament. I'm not making up stories, so please, but I will read them to you next week. One by one, I will go slowly through it. So you'll be able, because when I say them, they're nothing new. They're the things you've been hearing in the media or coming from Parliament in the last 16 months. So it's no make-up story here. This is based on what is being said by ministers, coming out of the Parliament and being followed up in the media. You know, but the sad thing is that the Apnu AFC government, with a lot of support, external and internal, fooled the people. And people voted for them. And so although our petition questions the results and the smallness of the difference of less than 1% with no recount allowed, and I'll just pause there, and a norm, it's a norm in any democratic society, that if the difference is so small, in fact, in some countries they say if the difference is 10%, if the difference is 5%, if the difference is 2%, you must have a recount. In Guyana, it was less than 1%, and no recount was allowed by the GCOM and Dr. Serge Valley. None. And we say that this was a democratic election, baptized by the observers. You know, as you know, when Chetty was writing in the 50s and 60s about the interference in Guyana's politics by external forces, in those days, the US and the Brits and so on, everyone blamed Chetty and said he was mad, he wasn't right, the Brits and Americans would never do that to us, Guyanese. Well, you know, Chetty was vindicated, and so was the PPP, because years later, in 1992-94, one of the key persons who worked with President John F. Kennedy and those who were involved in that American administration, I'm not saying Mr. Kennedy was, but those that were involved in that administration had a big hand in the removal of the PPP government in those years. And so, you know, he was apologized to publicly by Mr. Schlesinger. A public apology for the wrong that was done to Chetty Jagan and the wrong that was done to Guyana. And so we don't mind being unique at this time and saying we have evidence to show that these elections were not free and fair, that the GCOM machinery was compromised, and we're prepared to defend ourselves in court. Despite the editorial of one of the newspapers yesterday saying that we had no right to do this and the government was doing a good job and we should just get on and talk about sugar and rice. Well, by the way, newspaper, who I won't call, but I think you know who I'm talking about, we have been talking about sugar. We have been talking about Wales and the firing of 1,700 workers. And the end of the crop this month, the Wales estate will be a ghost town. And no one will listen. They wouldn't even allow us to debate the issue in Parliament. We have championed the cause of the rice farmers. It took us 2 big battles in Parliament to finally get the Speaker to allow a debate on rice. And so this editorial says that, you know, we mustn't talk about petition and this is foolish and we're being sore losers. Sore losers. Whether we lost by 4,500, and worse yet if we lost by a small amount, even if we lost by 10,000, 1% of the vote, less than 1% of the vote, is the difference between the two, government and opposition. And certainly if I was in government, I wouldn't have minded a recount, because I would have wanted to know, as the incumbent government, that the results were secure and that there was no doubt in the minds of the population that I had won. But no recount was allowed. And so we are with a petition in the courts. And we intend to champion this because the courts of Guyana cannot be held ransom to anybody either. This is another institution where independence and autonomy of the judiciary is sacrosanct for a democratic country. And so we will continue to champion and to call that our petition must be heard. We have our documents, we have our lawyers on standby. We have hired a very outstanding lawyer from Jamaica who has won a number of these election petitions in different parts of the world. But he's waiting because we can't have our day in court for our matter to be heard. And so the election petition and what is going on in the commission, and particularly with the procurement and all these things, is an indication that GCOM Bill of Health was not good, and that is an indicator and is not good, and it should show that there are then many questions that need to be asked about what happened in the May 2015 elections. You can talk about observers and what observers saw and didn't see, but we also know some things about that too, and we'll disclose them at the appropriate time. But you know, 25 scandals, of which one of these are all these procurement issues and audit of the GCOM. One of the 25. You know, one of the 25. And we haven't included in this list, ladies and gentlemen, what is an ongoing scandal, and in fact a violation of human rights. And this is the ongoing dismissal of public servants and workers in the state sector who happen to be majority one ethnic group and who are assumed to be politically affiliated to the PPP and the PPC. So this level of discrimination, we're going to come back in another program, because we have been doing our homework, my dear friends, and we have compiled an astonishing and astounding compilation of what we mean and what's going on in our country. And it is sad, and it is tragic. We're a country of many peoples, of different colors and hues and races and languages, and yet somehow this government believes, with 4,506 votes, that they can run the country for all of us and take into cognizance not only the 200,000 who didn't vote for them, but also their own 200,000 who voted for them. And so we will see. But I just want to make one last comment about GCOM. And I ask you a question. How come during the audit of GCOM, the Chief Elections Officer, Lowenfield, has not been sent on administrative leave, as happened with different PSs when the government changed and in the last year, and other Chief Executive Officers when the audits were being carried out? The PS of Legal Affairs, the Chief Executive Officer NDIA, the Chief Executive Officer of Public Hospital Corporation, the Chief Elections Officer of NISIL. Those are just 4 examples that are quick to go by. Lowenfield is on voluntary leave. He's not on admin leave. He wasn't sent on leave. But I understand he's every day at GCOM while the audit is going on. And so it seems to be that there's always double standards in this country. Who gets sent on leave and have their heart in their mouth, not sure if they're going to have a job when all of this is over, and others who, no matter what happens, they will be able to ride it through. And by the way, Dr. Serge Valley, who I understand is on leave too, because he's said that as of November 30th, he will be hanging in the hat and retiring as a chairman of the GCOM, and he has taken 3 months leave. Kind of funny for me to figure out this, because as far as I know, the GCOM chairman doesn't have a contract. So how does he take 3 months leave as an end of contract or a pre-retirement contract? Serge Valley has retired from the public service a very long time ago. So anyway, he's supposed to be on leave, and he's also in GCOM every day. So what's going on, guys? What's going on? But interestingly, why hasn't the government publicly announced that Dr. Serge Valley has submitted his resignation and that therefore we will be looking for a new chairman in accordance with the constitutional laws? Why has there been no public statement of that by the government? I've seen statements in the media by Serge Valley. I've seen comments in the newspapers by editorials in the newspapers about GCOM, but I have not seen a government official saying that Dr. Serge Valley has indicated as of November 30th he will not be the chairman of, he's handing in his gloves, whatever you want to call it, and therefore the government is now approaching the leader of the opposition based on the constitutional laws of this country for him to submit 6 names from which the president will select one as the chairman. That is what has happened from 1992 to now. How do we get Rudy Collins as the chairman during the 92 elections? That was the Carter Center formula, where the political parties in opposition, including the PPP and the WPA and others, came together and submitted a list of 6 names to President Hoyt. President Hoyt selected one, Ambassador Rudy Collins, who became the chairman, which led up to the GCOM under a new formula of the Carter Center for the October 1992 elections. And then, of course, after he came out, then it was Mr. Hopkinson, who was the chairman. Under the same basis, Mr. Hoyt, then as leader of the opposition, presented the names to the then President Chetty Jagan, who then selected Mr. Hopkinson as the chairman for the local government elections in 1994. And then Hopkinson came out. And for the 1997 election, it is Mr. Hoyt who submitted the 6 names, of which the then President Chetty Jagan selected Do Not Singh as the chairman for the GCOM. And then Do Not Singh came out. He was not a minister at the time, nor was he Attorney General. He was a practicing lawyer. And then we have 2001 elections, where Do Not Singh has come off the scene, and Mr. Hoyt again submits 6 names to then Mrs. Jagan, who was then president, and of which 1 name is chosen of the 6 names, and that is retired Brigadier General Joe Singh, and he serves 2001, 2006. And then you have Mr. Corbyn, Mr. Hoyt, I believe, who then submits the names, 6 names again, to replace Joe Singh, who only served in 1 election, and that's how Serge Valley was selected. So this time around, the leader of the opposition has, from 1992, 1990, under Hoyt, right through to 2006, or 2001 actually, 2002, under President Jagdeo, that the constitutional provisions are that the 6 names are presented by the leader of the opposition, who is officially informed there's a vacancy. And 6 names go, and the president selects 1. And the caveat is it must be a person that's not unacceptable to the president. So, of course, it says to the leader opposition, don't put someone who's absolutely rabidly opposed to the government on the list, because then the president will reject it. And so there's some level of, we understand what that means, both in government and in opposition. So, why is there a delay? Why is there a delay in informing the public, in informing Dr. Jagdeo that there's a vacancy and that they will be accepting the names in accordance with the constitutional laws of our country? Maybe the government doesn't really want Dr. Suraj Bali to go. They would like him to remain. And as he has said in a newspaper report, that he wants to see a whole range, a rack of reforms take place. So he's been there for 10 years. You mean now in the last, when you give notice that you're retiring or resigning, in your last 2.5 months, this is when now you want to bring a whole plethora of reforms in? What you been doing for the last umpteen years? Where you been? So we'll see. But I'm predicting that really the government really doesn't want Suraj Bali to go now. They have other things they intend to do and want done in GCOM before he departs. Well, you know, with all these scandals, lack of transparency and accountability, one has to wonder why the government, that is the president or whoever is acting for him, is not appointing the Public Procurement Commission. By the way, did you see Prime Minister Nagamuthu is off to India for a World Tamil Conference, and he's been given some big award, and the Minister Greenwich is acting for him. So we hope that in the absence of the Prime Minister, I don't know if the President has returned from UN, I assume so, that we will get cracking with appointing the Public Procurement Commission. Remember, on August the 8th, the public procurement nominees, the 5 nominees for the Public Procurement Commission, were passed in the House by a 2/3 majority. It's a historic event, because if we didn't give our support in the vote, they would not have got the 2/3 as required under the Constitution, and therefore the PPC names would not have gone forward. The fact that we supported means that we're in support of the establishment of a PPC. And you know, I saw my colleague Bishop Edgell put in a letter because he was responding to a particular editorial in another newspaper about trying to make it seem as if the PPP did nothing in relation to procurement and tendering and so on. And he just goes through a reminder to the public, in particular that newspaper, Stavrik News, that the issues of public procurement in particular came about as a constitutional amendment with 2/3 because the PPP supported it in the Parliament of the 7th Parliament after the constitutional reform period of 2001 to 1999 to 2001. And it is the PPP that brought the Procurement Act to Parliament in 2003 and secured its passage, and it's in that law that it talks about the establishment of the Public Procurement Commission. In fact, our Procurement Act is considered one of the best in the English-speaking Caribbean. In fact, a number of CARICOM countries have been looking into it and working with it to try to see how to incorporate some of those relevant to their own circumstances. We introduced the opening of public tenders. So unless the public doesn't know that when you tender with the Ministry of Finance or various, you have to, the tenders are opened in front of the media, in front of those who have gone to submit the tender, and it is publicly announced what was the tender, the amount. Closed, put back in the boxes, and then they go to the evaluators. We started that system because we wanted public scrutiny and we wanted the media scrutiny on the opening of the tenders. And these go to the National Procurement and Tender Administration. The issue of the NPTAB, the National Procurement and Tender Administration website. We're the only country in the English-speaking Caribbean under the PPC that posted the minutes of the opening of the tender, the bids, and also included the minutes of the National Tender Administration Board's minutes on the awarding of the contracts, and also posted the awards themselves. We use the site to advertise as well for bids to different projects. Go on the website now. The only minutes they have is of the opening of the tenders, and that ended on May the 10th, 2016, so there's no update. There are no minutes of the board itself to show you how they came to make the award or who they're proposing to be awarded for certain contracts. And of course, try and see the awards and who got what. The site is locked, so it's very difficult for you to open it and read who got the award and at what cost. So that if this is transparency of the APNU versus the PPP, then clearly whoever's writing these articles have no idea what was going on before, and who got caught up in the myth of the demonizing of the PPPC in government. And of course the Public Accounts Committee, it is traditional, the opposition always chairs it. The opposition chaired it from 1992 post those elections right through until 2015, before the elections then. And how come in all the reports that the PAC submits to the House on the review of the Auditor General's report year by year, have they not been able to expose one scandal, one corruption in any of those? Clearly, there are problems. You don't have enough staff, you don't have proper record keeping, and stuff like that. But I'm talking about scandals, like what we're seeing now, the drug bond, the giving away of the juices to a company, and the lowest tender, a local company, isn't considered, nor is the second lowest tender considered. And I could go on. Kitty Market, Durban Park. I could start listing a whole set. Just don't get me started, please. And so they have been running the PAC. The government doesn't sit there, and now that the government has changed, we're in the opposition. And we are chairing now the Public Accounts Committee. And we intend to be very active in calling out the Auditor General and so forth to do what he's doing. There are many other issues, but I suggest you read the letter from Bishop Edger. It's a good reminder of what we have been up to. You know, there are many things I'm sure that that you have to say, and I will pause there so that you will be able to come in. But that there are many issues that we could talk about. Minister Gaskin's comments on the public servants, Minister Gaskin's comments on the state of investments, the hope of things will be better soon. Yes, things are getting better soon. Well, people can't just live on promises. There are a lot of promises before 1992. A lot. Where are the promises gone? What's happened to the promises? All the thing about significant increases for the public servants. And you know, the funny thing is that when we were in government, no minister cabinet member got more than what the public service increase was. So there was 5%, everyone got 5%. And we could all live with that, and certainly the public service weren't happy about that because they needed more money, and certainly there were ministers who felt that they deserved more money, but they had to live with that as well. But how do you say with a bold face to the workers of this country that you're better paid than other parts of the world? And it's a problem of managing, you know. When you, as a minister, have just given yourself a 50 to 100% increase over what ministers of the PPC government gave themselves or had? How do you say that with a bald face? How do you say it with a poker face to the people? I don't understand. But you know, we have so many things to talk about. This is the same government that made these promises to the working people, that have reneged on these promises to the working people, because the 10% and the 1% is still not working out. Because if you're getting $1 million a month and you get a 1% increase, you approximately calculate. And if you're getting 55,000 or 50,000 and you get a 10%, what do you get? You're talking about 5,000 versus 100,000. So it's still not working out. And still, they haven't got it. But you know, it's not just salaries. I've said this months ago and I'll repeat it because maybe some of you have forgotten, maybe some of you weren't here when we started the program. But the ministers of this government have given themselves huge increases, including all the ministers, prime minister, vice presidents, everybody. But it's not only the salaries, it's the benefits. So the housing allowance, which if you lived in a government house under the PPP, $25,000 came out of your salary to go to Ministry of Public Works, because most of the time those flats were owned by the government, obviously, so that was what you're renting. It came out of your salary. If you were unable to live in a government house for whatever reason, and the government had to rent a place, you could not go above 180,000 Guyana dollars for rent. Well, now it's open season. You think the minister's going to live in government house now? Do you really? And the government flats at a Chilabar, where a number of government ministers of the PPP lived, with the PSs, with judges and magistrates? No, my dear. And so, rental. They're renting houses. A number of ministers have houses that they're paying $2,500 US for, up to $5,000 US, which, by the way, is $1 million. In addition to that, their allowances for travel have been vastly increased. When 92 Chedi got in, he slashed all the allowances we'd inherited from the PNC government for travel overseas, and insisted that we had to return money that we didn't spend on the trips. Well, the new ministers, their allowances for travel have gone up, and they don't have to return any unspent money. None. And so, in addition to that, their internet service is at the highest level, one of the expensive packages. Telephone, data services, all these things are all paid for by the government, including your electricity, telephone, water, etc., etc. So, what is the difference between the PPP government and ourselves and this government is that salaries are far higher under this government, the allowances are far higher, the what do you call, scope that they're allowed to spend money is much broader and wider than under the PPP. So think about that when you listen to Minister Gaskin. And later on these, we understand the budget 2017 will be presented early this year, and the government will be announcing the actual date. But that, listen carefully to that budget and see what is there for you, the working people of Guyana. We'll see. We shall see what goodies are coming. But we intend to be in opposition, as is expected, to scrutinize and to be representative of the people of this country, whether they voted for us or not. And by the way, Parliament recess will end on October the 10th, and the first sitting will be October the 13th. So on some of these programs, we'll bring back in, now that we're going back into Parliament, some of the issues that we're going to bring up in the House. So probably by next week when I come on the program, or the week after, I'll be able to give you a full mouthful on what we are doing and will be doing in the Parliament to keep things going and to keep the government on their toes and accountable. Now, the last week we raised a number of issues. You raised a number of issues with me in terms of our representation, and we've been trying to follow up with those. There have been checks in Region 3 for the gas stations in relation to kerosene, and a number of them have none, and we're trying to find out why not. In relation to the GT&T bills not being posted out, we were able to find out that GT&T was having a problem, and that they have said that they made a completely different arrangement than what they had before, and that the bills should be coming out shortly. They've started delivering some of those or mailing them out, so that if you get cut off and and I'm not saying cut off for 6 months ago, but cut off because you didn't get bills in the last month or so, you should really go to GT&T and say, no, this is not acceptable, because GT&T is your responsibility to send the bills to the customers. You can't expect customers to just decide they'll pay without seeing a bill, to be able, because they must be able to scrutinize it. Suppose GT&T made a mistake and put someone else's calls on your phone, which does happen from time to time, because there are ways in which you can get into the system, other people's phones and so forth. I'm not saying GT&T is doing that, but the new technology. So we've done that. We've looked at a couple of things. We're still trying to deal with a number of issues like the bus park at 45 in Georgetown. We've not forgotten you. I promise you, I've not forgotten you. We're trying to find out, Mr. Cuppin, who is our councillor, is supposed to follow up with that. We have also trying to raise, and we've designated different members of parliament to go and to deal some of these issues in Region 3. There were quite a few to do with health, to do with roads and so forth. And so we've assigned different MPs to go and do the homework, see what's going on, and to make representations so that I'll be able to report to you next week, hopefully. In addition to that, there were areas of call-in from Georgetown to do with the bridge at Barnes Sussex Street, which I saw after our program. One of the newspapers covered it, but I haven't been satisfied to have seen what is the City Council going to do about it. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it. And then, of course, you have other issues coming up with Georgetown. There was one about Houston Back Road. We have also raised that with a member of parliament to see what can be done, and with Mr. Cuppin, who is the councillor for us in the city. So that those are some of the things. I haven't forgotten you. I take notes. I must, however, apologize to a lady who called who said she was a grandmother taking care of a grandchild and needed assistance. I told her I would call her after the program came off air to get her details and to advise her what to do. Unfortunately, when these lines are open, there are two things come up at the same time. And I think I took the wrong number down, and when I called that person, it wasn't the lady who had called in. So my apologies. Please feel free. You can call 225-3432, and we'll be able to see if we can help you at Church Street. So, time for you to call in now, because I just wanted to make sure to let you who are calling in and taking the time to raise issues that I am trying to take notes and to be able to follow up with matters you're raising and to see what we could do. Okay? Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
I called upon a friend. I'm glad to know I'll take over about 20 miles. It's Bill Pressure all over.
Well, we would like to. We've got to make sure that GCOM machinery is good, though, boy.
So you can't even any time or nothing, man.
We've got to make sure the GCOM machinery is tamper-proof. Tamper-proof.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just hoping, man. I'm glad to say I could put no confident motion against them and all.
Okay.
And get these people out here quick.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Hello?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Matters of Public Importance. Can I help you?
I'm glad to see you on the television, but since I know you as a member of parliament and TV, I never saw you on the television.
I didn't used to like to go on television, I tell
I
you.
was so amazed to see you guys on the television rubbing with the public. But what I doesn't understand, why are we complaining? We are complaining on issues that we should have dealt in years ago. Because if I was probably shifting from back and forth, I was listening to this when the TV was in the country and running the country now. It was the same thing. I don't see any difference, because what you're complaining about is happening in the past. And we were trying to do...
Give me an example. Give me an example. I'm not dealing with generalities. Give me an example. Give me an example. You don't want gaff?
I'm saying...
You don't want gaff? Give me an example. Give me an example. I'm not getting out under the collar, I can assure you.
I'm just saying, listen to me.
I'm listening.
For me, this is my view.
Of course.
I'm saying
Of course.
It's no difference. Because look at it, in the crime rate, it's happened the same way.
Right.
The corruption, it becomes the same way. So I'm not giving away. Like, you guys know you were there. You are here, I am there. I'm not offended in the system, you know everything.
Okay, can I ask you a question, sir? Not to do with what you said. Those are your opinions.
Yes, of
But
course,
do
yes.
you began your comment by saying you're
Yeah, I'm
surprised to see
saying,
us?
listen to
No,
me,
can I just ask you a question, sir? I'm not being rude. I just want to ask you a question. Could you began your thing by saying that you were surprised to see the PPP on the television and so on. Are you saying, sir, that even if we may be the same, PPP, PNC, no difference, the PPP doesn't have a right to be on the television?
Yeah, I'm saying I'm not
Good,
saying
fine.
that.
Oh,
I'm
that's all I
saying
want to
that
know.
you're surprised
That's all
because
I want to
you're rapping
know.
with the public.
Okay, that's all I
good.
want to know.
That's good.
Good.
All I'm saying that we are saying, looking at what we've done there and that we're doing here, we
All right.
want to look at it and pull it up on this first where it starts, nip it on the bud.
Okay, good.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong or I'm not saying you're not good to be on the television. You're good to be on the television. That's good.
Uh-huh.
People like, we've been traveling around the world, we see everybody say things and go on the television and rap to the people and hear the views of everybody.
Right.
And there's nothing, no hard feeling or nothing to
No,
worry
no.
about. It's just that people can appreciate that you be on the television, you see things.
Well,
that
it's
put you
not.
on
It's
your
actually
mind.
not an appreciation. It's a right.
Huh?
We have a right to be heard.
Yes, you
Yeah.
appreciate it. If I was
We have
not
a right to be
appreciate it,
heard.
if
It's a
you were
human
not
right,
appreciate
actually.
it, if you were not, I would not appreciate it to speak to you. I would never take my little time to stay to talk to you because you're
Sure.
a very nice person.
Thank you.
Your personality, you never say, you always say hi to someone who is you on the road. There's nothing to be bad with that, but I'm saying that's good that you guys come out and say what you know, on the topic with the public. It's beautiful.
Good.
There's
I'm
nothing
glad.
wrong about that.
I'm glad you like that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Good afternoon. Matters of public importance.
Is it true that this present government will bring in 80,000 refugees in this country?
Beg your
from
pardon?
Somalia?
Beg your pardon?
Is it true that this present government will be bringing in 80,000 refugees from Somalia and Haiti into this country?
I've never heard that. Where did you hear that?
I heard it this week on Talking on the Road.
No, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. And so we have to be careful that people aren't frightening people, but I'm not aware of that. But I'm sure if it's the government will have to make it public at some point. We'll check into it, but I don't think it's true at all. I don't think it's true, because under Felix he's sending back all these Haitians and Caribbean people, and we're not a very welcoming country right now. He keeps sending back people to their countries when before with less than a billion people we could take in some more. So I'm not sure. It doesn't sound true, but we'll check it out. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Yes, good afternoon to you.
Yes,
Question.
yes.
Would the PPP be inclined to this agreement to slash the powers of the president and ensuring that he's answerable to the laws of the country instead of being immune from the laws of the country, where he could do anything that he likes and he cannot be prosecuted? Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening. Can I answer?
Yes,
I'm just
yes,
waiting
ma'am.
for you to finish your question.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one question. But I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay, so what do you want me to do? Answer it first and you do your
I'm
follow?
saying if the PPP would be inclined to be
In fact, the PPP did it already in the 1999-2001 constitutional reform. We took what was called the imperial powers, was popularly called in the media the imperial powers of the president and President Burnham, and it was watered down completely. The immunity of the president in terms of certain activities like the American president is a similar formulation as in our government. So it's the PPP that under our administration that took away what was called the imperial powers of the president, where under Burnham he was untouchable, absolutely untouchable. That is not the same case now, and if you read our constitution, no, can I just, you asked me a question, you asked me a question, and I'm answering it. When you say to me, would you be, I'm saying the fact that we did it before, and we did it before, we made constitutional changes that reduced the powers of the president, we would not be opposed to any area that would ensure that the president can be accountable to the people,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, but,
That's why I was.
and I'm just saying our track record. I'm just saying our track record shows that we were the ones who brought that in, and if there is anything that is thought to be. But we are still a Republican system. We're a Westminster Republican system
Okay.
where there's an executive president. If you want to change that and not have an executive president but a ceremonial president, as it was under Arthur Chung, who was a ceremonial president, then you have to go to a referendum to change the entire constitution. So those are issues that are really major issues for the government and for the opposition, whoever they may be.
You see, my contention is that I don't want a ruler. I want a leader of this country.
Right.
I want anybody who is the president or prime minister, whoever the case may be, they must be leaders.
Right.
Must not be rulers. Rulers are kings and queens, and we don't want kings and queens here.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, understood. Okay. Hello? Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Mazda Public Imports. You're the last question.
Good afternoon,
I'll take.
Teixeira.
Yes, good afternoon, my dear.
I called in the week before concerning Meadowbrook.
Yes.
Now,
Yes,
last
and I gave
week
the names. I gave the names of the counselors.
Yes, I got that.
Good.
I did some querying about that individual,
Right. There are
and
two.
it seems that she's off the map. The other individual for the other side, Miss Desiree, I was told she is out of the country on her permanent visa. So I would like to know, these people taking up posts as counselors, and when they finish and they get the post, they leave and they're gone.
Yeah, that's also possible. I'll check on that, but these are what you have two for each constituency. You have two candidates or two councillors. One is what you call a constituency candidate, and one is a PR candidate. You have Desiree Liverpool, I believe,
Yes, and Miss
Monica Thomas,
Thompson.
right? Do you know which one is the constituency and which is the PR?
No, I don't know.
Because the constituency one, if that person leaves the country, then they have to resign, and then you'd have to have elections for that constituency all over again. But if it's a PR candidate, the PR candidate can be filled by the list of that party. So
Well,
we'll
I
have to
don't
check
think
on that.
because we're finding out, myself and others, and we don't know where is Monica Thompson. And then the information we're getting is that Miss Desiree is out of the country. She got her permanent visa even before she contested the election. So when she got it, she even she went away. So we were left stranded with all the bushes and all the...
I know, I passed your area, I've seen it.
Yes. Another thing, Ms. Teixeira, poor people is really punishing in this country.
Yes.
I'm telling you, really is punishing. What is the president doing? It seems to me that the president is not the one who is taking matters forth for us in this country. There's somebody else who's doing it. Because like he don't have a say. I don't know what is going on. A lot of people go in different areas. You see, they're talking about giving buses to school children, giving this to school children, giving... You know how many children in that same area in Houston, you know how many children are going to school? Parents can't afford because it's poor people live in that area. A lot of people, children is not going to school.
Yes.
When PPP was given 10,000, they came, they take it away, they give it 2,000. What can $2,000 buy
Exactly.
for a child?
Yeah.
One shirt is $800 and a pair of shoes is $3,000 and $4,000. If you want a cheap shoes, $1,000, that's the heel shoe that is coming store sales. What are you going to give your child with $2,000?
Yeah. Anyway, I'd love to keep talking to you, but
There are things that
the
should
technicians
something
are...
got to be done. At least the opposition has to come out and do something for poor people.
Well, you know, we do as an opposition have to do these things, but people have to also support. It is the single mothers of this country, the mothers of this country who are finding it so difficult.
And we have a lot of that.
And we have to, as women, speak out. We have to speak out. Yes, the opposition can speak out for you. I can speak out. I can talk in Parliament. The women in Parliament can talk about what is going on with our children. But our women at all levels, vendors and cooks and cleaners and housekeepers and teachers and nurses and doctors, they got to open their mouths too.
Yes,
Otherwise,
I could
no one will
remember
listen.
when Mr. Morgan used to run Meadowbrook. You know, it wasn't like this.
Uh-huh.
Under the PPP, then Mr. Morgan was our, what you call it?
A
Because
counselor.
Because that is where he used to bring tools and so and give it to the citizens
Right.
to get the place clean.
Yeah.
And now I don't know a new system, but we're going way back in the dark old days.
Well, every fresh start is not always a good start,
Anyway, Mr. Chair,
But anyway, you have a
blessed day.
wonderful weekend, and thank you for calling, and it's always
You too.
enjoyable to talk to you.
Bye-bye.
And we'll keep looking for the 2 missing counselors, no?
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care of yourself. Bye-bye. Okay, I've been signaled to the chaps in the technician room that we're going over time, so I want to thank you very much for calling in. It's always enjoyable to be here. Sometimes, I'm not a person when I was in government that liked to be on television or go on radio and stuff. I was never very comfortable with that. And so doing this program has been a whole learning experience for me. And sometimes I do come in and think, I'm not sure I'm doing it right, and am I reaching people? Are people here? What do people think? And so when I do have the call-in sections, sometimes you make my heart very glad that you have called in. And the gentlemen who have called in, I was very glad that we had a woman caller and stuff like that, because it's also important for our women to be active and to be outspoken as well. So, you have a very blessed week. It is Thursday, and so you have the weekend in front of you. I always say every single week, don't drink and drive. We want you to be safe. We want you to be with your loved ones. We want for the children to grow strong. So don't drink and drive. Enjoy yourself, and if you had a little bit too much, don't drive. Find someone who could take you home, get a bus, get a taxi, whatever it is, don't drive. And that includes, when I say drive, bicycle, motorcycle, and car or minibus. I'm not saying, that guys who with a bicycle who have had a bit too much drink too also go all over the place and can be struck down. So take care of yourselves. Have a blessed week. Thank you for listening to the program of the People's Progressive Party Parliamentary Opposition. Thank you for listening to me, and we look forward to seeing you next week, same time, 12:30, 1:30 on Thursdays, right here on Channel 6. Matters of public importance. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend. Ta-ta.